محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome to our weekly drop-in class on the Book of Knowledge, which is the first book of Ihya Ulumuddin of Imam al-Ghazali. So if this is your first time or you've been coming for previous sessions, welcome, and there's no prerequisite, so don't worry if you haven't been before. Today's topic is a standalone topic, so you can follow inshallah ta'ala. But just to give you a little insight into what we have discussed previously, I've not done this, so I think it's good to let people know what we have been talking about. We've been talking about the virtue of knowledge, the importance of seeking knowledge, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about knowledge in the Quran, what the Prophet ﷺ said in the Hadith, what the scholars have said regarding knowledge of the pious predecessors, the Sahaba. We talked about the different types of knowledge, sciences, subjects to study, not to study, beneficial knowledge, not so beneficial knowledge. And recently we talked about the etiquettes of seeking knowledge of both the student and the teacher as well, and some of the things that each person needs to be aware of whilst learning the sacred sciences. So today's topic, as mentioned just now, is the pitfalls, the dangers, the perils of seeking knowledge. What is there that can go wrong? And in this section, Imam al-Ghazali rahmatullah alayhi talks about the scholars, in the sense that those who are learned. So when we talk about the people here, we're not just talking about scholars, we're talking about anybody who has sought knowledge, who is learning Islam, or has learned anything in life really. Why are they learning for? What is the outcome of their learning, and so forth? And if it's good, alhamdulillah. If it's not, then we need to be aware of this danger. So to start this section, Imam Ghazali quotes several hadith, a lot of hadith, maybe 10 hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm just going to mention a few of them as an introduction to the chapter. So it's going to read a few hadith so you understand what we're going to talk about. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said there are two kinds of knowledge. Knowledge of the tongue, that is Allah's proof against the Bani Adam, the children of Adam. And the knowledge of the heart, that is beneficial knowledge. So just having knowledge in our tongues and saying things isn't beneficial. That'll be a proof against us, that you said this, but what did you do with it? The knowledge of the heart, this is benefit. The knowledge that changes the heart, that makes one act upon the knowledge and improve and progress in life. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at the end of days, end of times, there will be ignorant servants and scholars who are evil people. So evil scholars will be something at the end of time. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, do not pursue knowledge in order to employ it or to use it to boast among the scholars, nor to dispute amongst the ignorant, nor to get the favor of pull the face of people, i.e. pull the attention of people towards yourself. Whoever acts in such a manner is destined for the fire. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever conceals knowledge, whoever withholds it, ever conceals knowledge that he has acquired, that he has learned, God will bridle him, will bring him with the bridle of fire, i.e. you'll be biting and be dragged in a fire on the day of judgment. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is something that I fear for you more than the Dajjal. So we heard of the Dajjal, this false Christ, Antichrist, false Messiah. It was asked, what is that you fear more than the Dajjal for us? He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, leaders that lead people astray, learned people that lead others astray. He said in another occasion, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever increases in knowledge but does not increase in huda, in guidance, only increases in bu'ad, in distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if our knowledge is not giving us guidance and bringing us close to Allah, then it only takes us further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are some of the hadith talking about the massive pitfall of knowledge. I think we had before a hadith where we mentioned that the most severely punished of people in the day of judgment are those who did not act upon their knowledge, those who did not benefit from their knowledge. So we don't want to be amongst those that don't benefit from what we learn. Some of the traditions, this is the style of Imam Ghazali. He mentions the hadith, he mentions the saying of some of the early Muslims. So he quotes Sayyidina Umar as saying, I fear most for this ummah a alimun munafiq, a hypocrite scholar, a hypocritical scholar, learned person who is a hypocrite. The people said, how can a hypocrite, a munafiq, be a scholar, be somebody learned, Sayyidina Umar replied, learned on the tongue, he speaks knowledge, ignorant, I know knowledge. So how can he be a scholar? He can have knowledge on the tongue, but in the heart, a hypocrite has got no knowledge. He's ignorant of tongue, or ignorant of heart and actions. So in actions, and his heart won't be following the knowledge or have any knowledge, he'll be ignorant, but his tongue may show you knowledge. A man said to Abu Hurairah, I wish to acquire knowledge, but I fear I will squander it, I will waste it. He responded, in your abandoning the pursuit of knowledge, you have already wasted it. So this is the danger of knowledge, that people think if I learn, I'll be responsible. But then not learning itself is a massive blemish and backward step as well. So we have to take the path of seeking knowledge. Hence Imam Ghazali is bringing this section to our attention, that we're all going to go on the knowledge, the path of the journey of learning in life. It's got its dangers. So be aware that first and foremost, be aware of the dangers, which we'll list in a moment, inshallah. So we'll read through these sort of hadith at the moment. A beautiful saying here of one of the early Muslims, Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, who was a scholar of language, other topics as well. But he's a beautiful saying here. He said, people are of four types. Listen carefully, maybe note these down. A man who knows, and he knows that he knows. Ya'rif, wa ya'rif annahu ya'rif in the Arabic, right? He knows, he has knowledge, and he knows that he knows. He is a scholar, so follow him. A man who knows, ya'rif, wa la yadri annahu ya'rif, but he does not know that he knows. So he knows, he's got knowledge, but he's actually not aware that he knows, but he has the knowledge. He is asleep. This is the second category, so wake him. Right? Some people are learned, they have, they've studied, they've sat with scholars, they have a level of knowledge, but because they're not officially a scholar or been through many years of study, they don't think they're worthy to teach or to speak to others. But alhamdulillah, they should be told to teach and be given a platform, not to teach the most advanced subjects or topics and titles, but to benefit the community, the children, the families, and so forth. So somebody who has knowledge but doesn't necessarily know that they're worthy or qualified to speak should be given support, really, right? Wake him, I support him. Give him or her, that platform and guidance and, mentorship, if you like. And then the third category, a man who does not know and knows he does not know. So we don't know, I don't know, and I know that I don't know, I admit it. So this is a level of ignorance, but it's not bad. He is seeking correct guidance, so teach him. Because if you know that you don't know, then you should be seeking that which you don't know. So this is a person who is seeking correct guidance, so teach him. And the final category, a man who does not know and does not know that he does not know. La yadri, wa la yadri annahu la yadri. He has no clue, basically, he doesn't know that he has no clue. Such a person is ignorant. He's not going to benefit from your speech, your talking, your lessons, your learning. So shun him. Don't waste your time with him. Obviously, if you can wake him up from this heedlessness, do that. But that's what you got to do. You can't teach a person like this. You got to wake him up to reality. That's the first step. And another beautiful saying here, one of the early Muslims, Sufyan al-Thawri, who was one of the great Imams of Islam, great Imam of fiqh, of hadith, one of the notables. He was like a colleague and a contemporary to Imam Abu Hanifa and other great Imams of the early generations. He said, knowledge calls to action. Knowledge calls for action. Knowledge, you get knowledge, it requires action. If it finds the action, if a person responds and gives the action, it finds application, implementation, it responds by becoming firm, by, rooting itself, by being beneficial. And if not, if it doesn't find any response, any action, any application, irtahal, it disappears. It goes on a journey, it takes flight, it just disappears. So if you want to maintain and keep this is the peril of knowledge, that to maintain knowledge, one has to act upon it. Learning, one of the most common things about human being is forgetfulness. So you learn, and you retain 10%. That's what the statistics say. After like a week or 2 weeks, you retain 10% of what you learn at a particular time. So say you should review regularly what you learn to get the retainment, the percentage up. But the Islamic way of Islamic knowledge is to act upon it. The more you act upon the knowledge, the more it will remain with you. The more you will, be able to relate it and understand it. And this is it's one of the secrets of knowledge. The way to retain knowledge is to review, is to act upon it, is to teach it as well. The more you teach, the more you're reviewing by default, and therefore it's be consolidating your knowledge. But the main way for every individual who won't necessarily get to teach is to act. So when you learn about wudu, for instance, practical example, And you learn not just obviously the basics, you learn all the details of how to wash yourself, the etiquettes, the sunnahs, everything. But then you don't practice them. You just go home and make wudu as you please, right? Tomorrow, 6 months later, when somebody says, can you make wudu according to the sunnah, which you learned 6 months ago, will you be able to? No, because you've been practicing your own method of wudu, which is the rushed method. Yeah, I rinse my mouth, I wash my face, I wipe my head. I'm not too sure about other things, but yeah, I remember reading something. I remember being in that class about wudu, at the madrasa in the evening, we went to evening classes. But you didn't act upon that knowledge. You didn't, when you talk about the etiquettes of salah, you talk about, certain things, but you don't go home and act upon these things, then they just, information is not knowledge, it's not beneficial. It's gonna take flight. And you won't be able to then practice it 6 months later. Then you have to go back again and learn again. So knowledge has to be acted upon, to be retained, and to be beneficial for us. Otherwise, as it said earlier, it's a proof against us, right? So Allah will say on Day of Judgment, you learned the deen, you studied, and you never acted upon it. Right? This is the bigger blemish, right? Big danger here, right? This is a responsibility we have. Ibn al-Mubarak, again another early Muslim, who's the time of Imam Ahmad, who's so Imam Sufyan al-Thawri was around 150 AH. Abdullah ibn Mubarak was around the time of 250 AH, which was the same time of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and others. He said, as long as a person strives for knowledge, is striving for knowledge, he is a knowledgeable person. This is the sign of knowledge. If you're trying, this is a beautiful thing. Should he come to believe that he has acquired enough knowledge, then he becomes ignorant. Right? So real knowledge is that understanding, this is real knowledge, that you don't have enough, that there's always more to learn, there's always something missing. We can never have full, complete knowledge of everything, right? So we always try and learn more, otherwise we'll fall into the category of the ignorant. So then it says, we move on to the traits of the learned ones of the next life. So if you're learned, you have sought knowledge, and you have learning in Islam, in the subjects, what is a sign, what are the traits that you are from the true scholars, let's say, the true learned people that are using their knowledge to get to the akhirah, the traits of the learned ones of the hereafter. So ulama al-akhirah, if you like, the learned ones who do whatever they do for the next life. The first thing that Imam Ghazali mentions, the number one trait, he says among these traits, is to not seek anything of this world through your knowledge. Don't use your knowledge to get position amongst people and money and fame. The worldly gain doesn't just mean money, it means everything. Position, power, fame, money, of course, following, right? I've got a big following. This kind of, this world that it can build up in. Because, Imam Ghazali explains this world and the next life are two opposites. They're two contradictions. They're contradictory. They can't come together, right? And he gives examples of this. Some funny ones as well. So he says like the two pans of a balance. If you put weight on one, the other one goes up. This one gets heavy, you lose that one, right? You can't, get both. He says if you have a container like this, and then another container like this, let's be practical, give you some examples, right? And if you're competing, one is the dunya, one is the akhirah. If you're adding to your dunya, what's happening to your akhirah? Let's have a look. What are you doing to your akhirah? Oh, you can't see that. Let's give you a bit more. Stickers in the way. Oops, there we go. Can you see what happened to your akhirah? It's gone down. You've lost, 200 milliliters of your of your akhirah, right? You've put it into your dunya. Let's say that's, good deeds, right? You've thrown them into this world. You wasted them. You're going to take this with to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you put everything in this world and you have no intention for the akhirah, you've lost everything. They're two opposites. They can't combine, right? It's what he says, there's two containers. If you're pouring into one, you're emptying the other. Now we can, look how hard it is. That's a good example, this, right? Look how hard it is to get it into the akhirah. Bismillah. Look, mashallah, I'm good. Right, but it's hard. You've got to concentrate. You've got to take effort. Don't want to waste the water. There we go, mashallah. Look. What's happened to the dunya? Emptied. What we done to the akhirah? Filled up. Alhamdulillah, right? Some Sayyid can drink it later. Sayyid. Blessings. So this is what he mentions. The other one he mentions, which is the funny one, is like two wives and one husband. Right? If you please one, the other one gets upset. Please the other one, the first one gets upset, right? So you can't please both of them, supposedly, right? Another example given here is the East and the West. So it's like the East and the West. If you go to the East, the further you go to the East, or the more you go to the East, the further you get from the West, right? The dunya and the akhirah, this life and the next life, are like two opposites of the compass, right? East and West. If you go to the East, you're going to be going further away from the West. The more you go towards the dunya, the further you're going from the akhirah. They don't combine. However, we have explained previously how this world is a means for the akhirah. So this whole world isn't completely worthless and has no value, but that which we use to get more closer to Allah, get productivity. Allah commands us to have good etiquettes, manners, build civilizations, educate each other, be helpful, be good mannered. These are all part of the akhirah. So when you do these things, you're building goodness. You're spreading beneficial characteristics. You're helping people progress. So that is good. That's part of this world, though. So that's the good part of this world, which is ultimately a means to the akhirah. There's rewards. There's outcomes. There's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you for that, will respect you for that, will honor you and appreciate that and reward you for that. So we're not saying the whole world, because we're in the world right now. We're saying the part of this world that is just a complete distraction. Some of it is not even sinful, to be honest, because if you're just sitting down having a meal, it's not sinful. If you're just walking about, it's not sinful. But if it's heedlessness, if it doesn't bring you any closer to Allah, if it's a waste of time, then it's not a sin, but it is taking away from what you could have potentially gained in the akhirah. So every moment gone is a moment lost if you don't use it for something good, right? So it's like our life is the time of our life. The time we have is like our capital. The more you invest, the more you'll get at the end. But the more you just waste, you spend on bad investments, they don't give you anything ultimately, which is the world, then at the end you'll have less to reap, right? Less profits, as they say, right? So give you an example. Your life is £1 million, right? Your life is inshallah 50, 60 years of goodness, inshallah ta'ala. But you've got, let's say, for example, some random person has got £1 million. That's their life as well. That's their 60, 70 years. So half their life they spend just eating, drinking, walking around this world, and it costs them £500,000, right? That's what they spend. I don't know how much you spend on a normal lifetime, but I'm just giving you random figures. And they don't practice any good through that. You could have said Alhamdulillah, you could have thanked Allah, you could have had good intentions, but it's just everyday activity, it's mundane, it's habitual, there's no connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no sin necessarily any of that, but what are you going to reap from that £500,000 spent? It's just wasted, isn't it? May not be no sin, there may no punishment at the end of the road, but there's no benefit. Somebody else uses that same £500,000, half of their life, and is thanking Allah for the food they get, is intending to use that energy to help people, is supporting others through that wealth, is being conscious of Allah wanting him or her to do this, etc., spending the right way, understands not to overspend here, and I'm spending on my family because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has me to provide for them, and has all these intentions and understands what it's all about, has invested £500,000, or let's say a great portion of that £500,000. So at the end of the journey in the akhirah, this person will come with nothing. This person will come with profits, rewards, will reap the fruits of the efforts that were presented in this worldly life. So that's what we're talking about here. The world is the world. It can be used for good or bad, right? This glass can be used for good or bad. Good because I drink water and honey and milk from it and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But somebody else could put a haram substance in there and use it for that, right? So we are given this container. Time is a container. We can fill it with what we want. Our actions are what we fill that container with, right? This is a container, you fill it with drink, money is money, you use it to get things, right? Life is your time. You fill that time with actions. Those actions have to have intentions, have to be built on knowledge. Really, without knowledge, we can't have the intentions. We don't understand what to do. We can't do the acts in the best of manners and the way of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sunnah and etc. So knowledge helps us to get those actions right. Action is required though. So this is the crux of the matter. Action based on knowledge. So the first intention, really going back to this, is that we can't use that knowledge to gain more of the dunya, to get more and more of this world, to get more and more investment. We might be building a lot more. We might turn that million into 10 million in this world. but it's going to give a 0 in the next world. It might even give us a minus in the next world, because that's sins. I've not talked about sins, but it could, right? That's the negative. If you take over haram transactions, if you're spending on haram things and doing, harming people with your wealth, then you're not going to come with 0, you're going to come with minus all those hundreds and thousands of sins, etc., and the punishments for them. So we don't want to be in that situation. We want to be building our akhirah. And every scholar must show, every learned person must show this to be a true learned person. And this, one of the signs that a person is not benefiting from their knowledge is as follows. Among the traditions of Dawood alayhi salam, as written by Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal in Kitab al-Zuhd, and also by Abu Talib al-Makki in Qut al-Qulub, and by Imam Ghazali, who's taken it from those references, is that he related a story where he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him, the least I do to a scholar that prefers his capricious passions over love of myself, of Allah, is to forbid him the joy of intimate conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the person who's learned but doesn't even make du'as or turn to Allah in private and so forth, they just outward show this is a sign that he or she should recognize that if I don't have this in my life, am I really benefiting from my knowledge? Isn't it supposed to be that knowledge makes us turn to Allah more, makes us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so forth, right? Where is all this? It carries on, it says, O David, O Dawood, do not ask any scholar, learned person intoxicated with the world about me, for he will only be a hindrance to you from the path of my love. O Dawood, should you see a person seeking me, be a servant to him. O Dawood, if you see anybody seeking me, wanting to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, serve him. O Dawood, whoever returns someone to me who has fled from me, whoever guides somebody back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will decree for that person who helped this other person the rank of a wise scholar. And whenever I decree the rank of a wise scholar, I will never punish. Okay, so this is what we're aiming for, right? To help others through our knowledge, not to be distracted by this knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first and foremost. Hassan al-Basri said, that the penalty meted out to the scholar is death of the heart. And the death of the heart causes one to seek this world by means of actions intended for the akhirah. So this is the first point that Imam Ghazali makes, that make sure you're a person who's learning for Allah, for the akhirah, and not to use this knowledge for worldly gain, and so forth. And quotes many other sayings here of some of the scholars. A man wrote to one of his brothers, knowledge has been granted to you, so do not extinguish the light of your knowledge with the obscurity of sin, and be left in darkness on the day of judgment. On the day the people of knowledge hasten quickly to the light, with the light of their knowledge. So if you don't act on the knowledge and you take it out with sins, you act in the wrong way, then you will not have the benefit of the light of that knowledge on the day of judgment. And that's the second thing here, to protect yourself from sins, right? So knowledge should help you to become obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So not just obedient. So the first one was not just to seek the dunya, but to seek Allah. Then seek Allah through obedience. A scholar should aim to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And really action with knowledge is the second kind of characteristic, which was mentioned earlier in the general hadith at the beginning, in the introduction. But this is the second point, to act on one's knowledge and to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through one's knowledge. Sahal ibn Abdullah Tustari says the following. He was again one of the early Muslims. He said, except for scholars, except for learned people, everyone is dead. So if you haven't got knowledge, dead is in, the heart is dead, the life is dead. There's no reality to the person's life without knowledge. You don't have to be an extremely learned person, but with some knowledge is required to bring the heart to life. Then he said, those learned people, except for the scholars, the people are dead. Apart from those who act, among the scholars, apart from those who act, the scholars are intoxicated. So they may have the light, they may have a live heart, but unless they act, they're intoxicated with their knowledge. They're not benefiting from their knowledge, right? So they have to act. So that's the second step, action. That's what we're talking about. And apart from the sincere amongst those who act, the rest are deluded. So sincerity, so it's not just action, it's sincerity in action. No sincerity, delusion. The sincere people, the sincere ones among them, must remain apprehensive until their life is sealed with sincerity. So even their sincerity, they're thinking, can I remain sincere? Is this sincerity? Is this going to be truly from the heart? And this constant struggle is something that they fight through all their life until their final moments. Let's go back. Knowledge first. Without knowledge, dead. With knowledge, there is action. Otherwise, we are intoxicated. We're not really aware of what's going on. We're learning for the sake of what? Just in entertaining our minds. Entertainment today is learning, right? Then with action, we must have sincerity. And without sincerity, we're just deluded. So just acting for no reason, acting for what? For the dunya, for nothing, for what? So acting with sincerity. There's got to be sincere intention. And then the final stage is to maintain that struggle of trying to remain sincere with ikhlas, having ikhlas in everything we do. So it's knowledge, action, ikhlas, struggle. Maintain that struggle for the rest of your life. This is what we need to do. And this is what will make a big change in our lives. So if you're not on that journey, make that journey. If you're not somewhere learning, start learning. If you're not acting after learning, start acting. If you're acting, work on your intention, your ikhlas, your sincerity. And then if you are, keep struggling and keep on that path. And Allah will give you many gifts in this life and the next, many rewards. If you're actually on that path, it's a great and noble path to be on. Abu Sulaiman ad-Darani said, when a man seeks hadith, seeks knowledge of the narrations, or marries someone, or journeys in search of sustenance, or goes and looks for the dunya, for sustenance, he has inclined to this world. So don't worry about marriage and the sustenance. Look what he said. He said, whoever seeks hadith, whoever seeks knowledge of the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ, and he's gone towards the world. What he meant was that those who want to gain the knowledge of the deen to be called a narrator of hadith. Go to someone, because in that day, of course, he was talking about, it was a big thing. People who come from around the world, it's died out now, right? We've got books and computers and scholars all around the world, etc. But in the early days of Islam, the knowledge was in Makkah and Medina. The knowledge was in, Damascus they went to first. Like, it was in the sort of early sort of Arabian Peninsula, let's say, and it was spreading slowly, Egypt, and slowly to Persia, etc. And it was massive in Persia, time Imam Ghazali, of course, right? But initially, where was it? It was in Makkah. Who do you go to in Makkah, Medina, and Damascus? The Sahaba. And the Sahaba are all sincere. But there's students now. If you had hadith, they'd go to you next. And people who come all the way from Islamic Spain, and all the way from Persia, all the way from north, Syria, south Turkey today, the Byzantine Empire that were all the way to, and Africa and other places, all the way to Medina to sit with Imam Malik, because he became famous for the Muwatta. He had a book called Muwatta of Imam Malik, a hadith collection of approximately 1,000 hadith, which narrates from his teachers, the Prophet ﷺ. It's one of the earliest books of hadith we have, and one of the most sound and reputable books of hadith and knowledge. It's one of the best books, in fact. And so it was such a privilege and prestigious to have access to that book. So people would come to Medina to sit with Imam Malik, get the chain of narration, go back to their city, and then become one of the main top scholars, leaders, because you had that book, you had learnt it, you'd studied it, you'd written a handwritten. There was no paper, printing press at the time. There was no printing. There was just handwritten stuff. So they would, if you got a copy that you take back that you've handwritten after listening to it from Imam Malik, what is handwritten copy as well, etc. It was a big thing, massive thing, right? So it was a big thing to seek hadith because it had so much prestigiousness to it, so much, notability, notoriety with it. So it wasn't about that. It was about the intention. Imam Malik was sincere, and many were sincere around him. And in fact, one of the most sincerest of them was a particular one from actually Islamic Spain. I think Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi, I think his name was. He came to Medina to study with Imam Malik. He studied for 1 year, and he completed the Muwatta. So he studied all the Muwatta for 1 year, and he was ready to go back. He could have gone back. He was a scholar. But he stayed 2 more years. He stayed for 3 years. After 3 years, he started to pack his bags and go. He stayed much longer, 3 times as long as he needed to. And he'd finished by a year, So they said to him, you could have gone back 2 years ago earlier and, become famous and benefited your community and done so much, obviously sincerity-wise. But he said, so why did you stay 3 years for? He said, look at his response, look why he became famous. Look why I'm mentioning him today. All the students of Imam Malik were thousands of students. He said, it took me 1 year to learn the book of Imam Malik, the knowledge of Imam Malik. But it took me 3 years to learn the adab, the etiquettes and the mannerisms of Imam Malik. So it's not just about, narrations. That's different to this. This is when he wants to narrate hadith. Sorry, to learn hadith, to narrate hadith. Learn hadith, to narrate hadith. That wasn't his intention. His intention was, I want to benefit myself. I want to learn how to be a good person. This is a learned person. He has hadith to the Prophet ﷺ. He's sitting here. Let's learn about him as well. Listen about how he conveys the knowledge. So that's what he did. So that's an example, if you like, of acting on knowledge in itself, right? Not just learning it, but acting upon it. Says Abu Hurairah reports, whoever seeks knowledge by which the countenance of Allah is sought, but also seeks with the affairs of this world, will not find even the fragrance of the heaven, of paradise on the day of resurrection. So if you seek knowledge for the dunya, you will not even smell the fragrance of paradise. And this is another thing he mentioned, a very scary narration mentioned by Abu Talib al-Makki in his Qut al-Qulub and Ibn Asakir in his Tarikh al-Dimashq, the history of Damascus. It's a voluminous book that's about history, but he also talks about everything, narrates hadith and that, etc. So it's referenced there. Ibn Asakir was a great scholar of hadith. The history of Damascus book he wrote, I think, is in about 40 volumes, right? I don't know if you have all of it with us today, but I believe you have a large section of it. So he names the following. He says, a man was once in the service of Musa alayhi salam. And after serving Musa alayhi salam, you serve a prophet, let alone a scholar, you become famous, you become known, you become respected for having companionship of a prophet, of a scholar, of a learned person, of even a leader. Like, he goes to parliament, people are taken, quite into that kind of thing, right? So this is what he had. He had that status. So he started to go to people, say to them, Musa, Kalimullah, said to me, and he started saying things. He would say, Musa, the chosen one of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, said to me, I was with Musa alayhi salam, and he was talking to me about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so mentioning every time he'd speak, he'd use the name of Musa alayhi salam to get credibility, to show his position. Look, I learned this from Musa alayhi salam. I was Musa alayhi salam. This. So in the end, he says, until he became wealthy, right? So people, he used to get money, and his possessions multiplied. So obviously he got the dunya from using that kind of angle, right? Musa alayhi salam missed him. And one day so he went, of course, on his own way. And I started asking about him. And he found no trace. He's like, where's he gone? He must be around somewhere. So nobody knew. Then one day, he saw a man walking, and he had a pig with him, with a black rope. So he had a pig with a black rope around its neck, etc. Right? So Musa alayhi salam asked him, oh, do you know so and so, this person that I'm looking for? First time I've seen you. The man with the pig who was walking said, yes, it's this pig. That man has been turning. This is what it says here. It says, I'll read it for you literally. It says, then one day a man approached him leading a pig with a black rope around its neck. Musa alayhi salam asked him, are you familiar with so-and-so, this man? To which the man responded, yes, he is this pig. Musa alayhi salam shouted out, obviously, Ya Allah, I ask you to return him to his former state. This is the wisdom of Musa alayhi salam. Obviously, Musa alayhi salam could have asked Allah what happened, but he didn't. He wanted him to come back to be a man, to be a human being. Oh Allah, I ask you to return him, this pig, to his human state, so I can ask him what happened, what did you do? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied, whereupon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Musa alayhi salam, had you entreated me, had you called upon me as Adam entreated me, had called upon me after what happened in the garden, and the prophets after him, and all the prophets called upon me, the du'as of the prophets, I would not respond to your call. But meaning that he's done something so bad, I'm not going to do this for you. If you ask me, I'm not going to return him back to a human being. But I will inform you why I have treated him like this, why I have done this to him. It's because he sought to gain the world through the deen, through the religion. He sought to gain the world, the dunya, through the religion, through the name of Allah, the name of the prophets, and religious knowledge, and he got money, and he got wealth, and this is his punishment. This is in the world, right? This is obviously from the previous nations, right? Ummahs, communities. We ask Allah for protection from such a state, and we don't want to be anywhere near those kind of people. From the traits of a so there's a lot of narrations about not acting upon knowledge. I mentioned a few more. The Prophet ﷺ said on the night journey or the ascension through the heavens, as he was going through from Makkah to Jerusalem and then through the heavens, on that journey, I passed by a people whose lips were being shredded with shears made of fire. Right, not scissors, but massive shears made of fire. I asked them who they were, and they responded, we used to enjoin others to good and not to do it ourselves, and forbid evil from others while we did it ourselves. Right, so these were learned people. They knew what was right. They told us, do this, it's good for you, and they never did it themselves. They knew what was wrong, and they said to people, don't do this, forbid the evil, but they were doing it themselves. This was their punishment that the Prophet ﷺ saw. Abu Darda relates, woe be once to somebody who does not know. Woe, wailun, badness be for someone who does not know once. But woe be to the scholar 100 times who does not act upon his knowledge. So woe to, if you don't know, bad for you. Yeah, that's not good, learn. But woe be to the learned one who does not act upon his knowledge 100 times. And that's like we said, horrible state to be in, that Allah has given you this blessing of knowledge and you're not acting upon the knowledge. Imam Hatim al-Asam, he says, there is no one on the day of resurrection in a greater state of loss than a man who imparted knowledge to people who then acted upon it, while he himself did not act upon it. They will be successful because of him, while he will perish. So this is the greatest loss ever. Not money, not status, not world. The greatest loss is not acting upon one's knowledge. Malik ibn Dinar said, the admonition of a scholar who does not act on his knowledge rolls off the heart of people like raindrops off a smooth stone. No penetration, no effect. So lack of effect of a fake scholar, really. This is, we seek refuge from being insincere. Ibrahim ibn Hadam once related that he came upon a stone which read on it, turn me over and take the lesson, take heed. So I turned it over and found inscribed, he says, I turned this rock over and I found inscribed upon the rock, you do not act on what you know. How can you then seek knowledge of that which you do not know? You don't act on what you know, then why are you seeking knowledge of that which you don't know? First act on what you know. This is the wisdom is here, that we act on what we learn. This is one of the most important lessons we can take here. And when we talk about action on knowledge, Imam Ghazali gives us a bit of hope, and he says that it's narrated from the companions, Hudhayfa being one of them, that he said to the people of his time, Hudhayfa is a companion, may Allah be pleased with him, he said to the people of his time, the early Muslims, you exist in a time, whoever abandons 1/10 of what is required, of what is the actions of Islam, so whoever doesn't do 90% plus, if you abandon 10%, that's it, you're in loss. It says, you will perish. But there is a time coming, are you talking about our time, the end of time? Whoever acts on 1/10 of knowledge, whoever just does 10% of what's required, will be saved. Right, so in the past, they had to do 90% to be saved. That was the time they lived in. So yeah, we have got a bit of mercy, or let's say a bit of leeway in our time. Is so far from the Prophet ﷺ, from that whole environment of Islam, Iman, practice, the glory that we read about or hear about. But where is it today, right? So alhamdulillah, it's a well-known saying. It's not made up or anything. It's a sound narration, and we hope that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala does have mercy on us. That if we try and just do some, we have to do something. The key point is here: our 10th was done. Are we at 10th yet? Are we on 0 or 1% or 2%? Let's get to a 10th at least of what's required of us. And some of the interpretations of that is that it's due to the lack of knowledge and due to the lack of bad scholars, that people just will not get the knowledge they need to act on what they require. So there's a leeway for them. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who do such a thing. And among the traits of the scholars of the hereafter, the true scholars, is that they have concern about learning that which is beneficial, and not just learning that which gives them, enjoyment or benefit for a small group of the people, but it's the most beneficial for everyone. So they learn with a priority in learning, if you like. There's a priority in seeking knowledge. There's also a priority in teaching knowledge as well. So there's no point teaching all the advanced stuff and complicated stuff when people don't know the basics. No point when you're learning the basics to go and open massive encyclopedias, try and figure complicated things out when you don't know the basics of your zakat or the basics of fasting in the month of fasting, and you might not be fasting properly, or you're not be giving zero zakat properly, or when you go on Hajj you don't know what to do because you didn't learn about Hajj, but you know all about, let's say you're interested in, I don't know, the finance market, and every little that might be relevant to you, but what is your daily everyday practice is what you need to learn first. And learned people should use their time to kind of, if you can cure multiple diseases and help a large amount of people, would you want to put your efforts and energy into that rather than concentrate on 1-2 people that you can help, and your time will be kind of not wasted but not used wisely. So this is one of the traits of a scholar. It says, it has been rated that a man approached the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, teach me the little known facets of knowledge, the intricacies of knowledge. So the Prophet ﷺ asked him, what have you done with the most essential facets of knowledge? You want all these details and fine points. What have you done with the essentials, the main points? The man asked, what are the main points? What is there we need to learn? He ﷺ asked the man, have you come to know Allah the Most High? Do you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He said, yes. He then asked him, what have you done concerning the rights due to Him? What have you done in terms of serving Allah? He replied, as Allah wills, mashallah, ma arad Allah. The Messenger of Allah asked him, have you come to know about death? He responded, yes, I know about death. He said, then what have you prepared for it? He responded, whatever Allah has willed. The Prophet said, go and gain a mastery over these matters, then come and we will instruct you in the little known facets of knowledge. Right? So there's really important things we need to do before we go into these finer details. And then there's a beautiful narration here of Hatim al-Asam, who is a student of Shaqiq al-Balkhi, and having accompanied him for 30 years, 33 years to be precise. Shaqiq, the teacher, asks Hatim, the student, what did you learn? And we'll find out next week, inshallah ta'ala. So it's a long narration which we'll save for next week. So this is, next week's topic is what we should learn from studying. And there's 8 lessons that Hatim derived from his companionship with Shaqiq al-Balkhi. They're both great men of Allah, great famous. So we'll mention who they are in more detail next week. We should talk about them as well as individuals. But what are the 8 lessons that he learned, and what we need to really, these are amazing 8 lessons. Some even said, if you were to take the Ihya Ulumuddin as one kind of thing, what would you do? Some said this narration, this story. Take this story, this is the crux of it. Take this story and act upon these 8. These not just stories, 8 lessons derived by one of the great men of Allah from his teacher, who was also a great man of Allah after 33 years. So what are these 8 lessons? We need to know them, we need to learn them, we need to act upon them, inshallah ta'ala. Several pages on it, so it's not just a short 1 point, 2 points. It's actually explanation of each lesson, each major point, inshallah. Then there's the final kind of conclusion to the story as well, which will be the topic of next week, inshallah ta'ala. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wasallam baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Hope the viewers at home are benefiting as well from these weekly live sessions as well for those at home, and hope those who attend are as well. There's a playlist, so you can just follow the playlist on our YouTube channel if you're watching now or later. Jazakumullah khairan. And as usual, any questions are welcome at the end. For our last 10 minutes or so, we usually give for time for questions. So any questions from anyone? No? That's fine. It's not obligatory to ask questions. So thank you all for attending. I hope you benefited from today's session and class. And again, as you can see, next week is a new topic. If you didn't attend today, you could have come next week and learn about the story between Hatim al-Asam and Shaqiq al-Balkhi and what happened and what was derived from that, inshallah ta'ala. I don't know if it's mentioned to you, but we do have the flyer there for you. Please take a look at that. Take it home, on the reverse. I don't know which side you've got it. There's a calendar which tells you about the kind of stuff we do here at the center on a monthly basis, right? Weekly things, monthly events. The one I would recommend for the ladies is the Burda night, which is the top right of the calendar. On the 30th of March with Sheikha Noshin Gul. Ustada Noshin is one of our female lead teacher and head of the ladies and children's activities as well, actually. And they have a gathering where all the ladies come together. They have food, lessons, some naat, or ladies only event. So please try to attend that. There's other stuff on there that you may interest you, etc. But that's once a month, last Saturday for ladies. So that's what I meant for the ladies. For the brothers, it was this Saturday, which was the 9th of March. Said, were you there? MashaAllah, you were. I remember seeing you. And so next month is on the 13th of April. So it's not on this calendar. We do a new calendar every month. But on the 30th of April, we'll have a brothers gathering. But the brothers also have a gathering on what day, Said? Thursdays at 8 o'clock. So we do have a weekly gathering at 8 o'clock on Thursdays. Everyone's welcome. Food is served as well, isn't it, Said? So food will be served, usually rice and a bit of sometimes roti salad and sometimes pizzas, whatever the brothers decide to get in. That's brothers only on Thursdays. So those are the kind of things you can come on a regular basis, just drop in every now and then. There's no prerequisite, there's no registration. They're just open events. The other stuff, you might have to register. There might be a fee to some of it because it costs money to run. We've got new things happening. The Speakers Club is not on there, that's new. Speakers Club for children. Chess Club, I think, is on there. But the Speakers Club, I think, is full already. It's for young people anyway, I think 11 to 15. But yeah, check our website out. It's probably the best thing, www.guidancehub.org. And everything we do is on there. If you go to Eventbrite, use Eventbrite for events. A lot of our events are on Eventbrite. And you can see descriptions and what we're doing if you ever be on Eventbrite as well. But thank you, and Jazakallah khairan, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And see you next week, inshallah ta'ala. Ahsan Wasim, mashallah. Are you local or are you from? Oh, from Russia, mashallah. Oh, Central, mashallah. The college. English, near Stone Road, the castle near. Okay, next year, not next week. The main road, yeah. One's the main road. Probably have to be the one. Especially to. So much important, especially nowadays. So. I just jumped on as soon as I knew, but my friends, he's somehow found out. I didn't know. Okay, he recommended it. Okay, people coming down here. Inshallah, I will try the first time. Yeah. So it's every Tuesday, also give us the flyers for my friends. Yeah, give them up to your friends. Yeah, Thursdays we have another event. Yeah, no registration required. Come on Thursdays that's what brothers only. This one's open for brothers and sisters. Most of our events, our classes are open to everyone. Start the gathering, singing, and do a bit of sometimes sometimes we have little reminders and food together as brothers.
It's really good. It's these kind of things. It's kind of
Yeah, we're trying to do a little bit here in Manchester.
And the new bit we see, I was first lived in
Okay.
and I worked there for a bit, and then I had a community